On today's show, 3 questions. Number 1, is your power out? Number 2, are you spending more this week? And number 3, does your portfolio care who's president? Welcome to Dentist Money's 2 cents, where we help dentists navigate all the noise. I'm Matt.
I'm Will.
I'm Taylor.
Guys, another week without our boy Robbie Bobby. I think he's back. I think he comes back today. I'm not totally sure. He's back in the office on Monday, but we have been lost souls. The market somehow has stayed together.
Yeah, somehow.
Without Robbie. I don't know how. I thought for sure that was the number one indication of a market downturn was Robbie going out of the country
and not
for a
being
few
able
weeks.
to do these podcasts. Yeah, that's
being
true.
able to do these podcasts. It was actually really funny. We planned ahead a little bit. We recorded a couple weeks ago because he was going to be out for like 4 of them. And so we're like, that's too many. And then something got messed up where we were supposed to do another one and only have 1 week where we didn't have Robbie, but it turned out to be 2. This just shows you the heart of Robbie. He was so like worried and like so like sad that he couldn't be on. He was going to miss 2 weeks. It just shows how much he cares. He's like, are you sure? Like, I'll do it from the airport. I'll do whatever you need. And I was like, Robbie, go have fun. It's all good, dude. It just shows how much heart Robbie has.
That's funny.
So we miss you, Robbie. We'll be glad to have him back. Okay, so we'll jump in. I think we're going to do possibly a little bit of a shorter show today, but the first thing is it's pretty rare we do like live updates. Like we're like coming at you live from the studio. Breaking news. But this was too much to not hit. And to be honest, there's not a lot going on as far as updates on like Fed, and there's nothing big happening. So we'll just wait for Robbie to get back to jump back into like inflation watch. But this morning, literally this happened, like this news came out this morning, which is the largest IT outage in history. It has impacted basically every single aspect of the economy, every business you can think of. Like doctors' offices are having issues across the country, across the world. This is downing planes. Will, what were you saying? You know someone?
Yeah, he sent a picture into the family group text this morning and said we're supposed to go on a flight to DC today. They live in Atlanta, huge airport, obviously, and he's like, It was chaos. It was like kind of doomsday vibes. He said we literally walked in, talked to one person, and then turned back around and went home. So
that was it. Like they just were like, "There's no hope here."
Basically, they say all flights are grounded. You're not going to get on your flight essentially anytime soon. And he was like, it was chaotic enough, and the lines were long enough that it was like, we'll just come back another day.
Wow! And this was a vacation they were going on?
I don't know what they're doing. I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. You're just like, well,
yeah.
So question on that. What I think there's 2 types of people in this situation that you just highlighted, Will. The people who did what your brother-in-law did, which is like, we're just going to leave. Like there's no hope here.
Yes.
And then the ones who dig in, push back, fight, panic, talk to every single person, sit there for 10 hours.
Yeah.
Are you willing?
There's videos right now. You can go like scroll your social media and you're going to see some people freaking out of the airport.
Yeah. Dude, airport freak out videos are abundant, either on the plane or off the plane.
I will say, it's different when you're in your hometown and you can just go home, and it's different if you're in the middle of a layover.
Yeah.
Because that has happened to me where we were in Denver and like all of a sudden all chaos, like we couldn't go anywhere. There was a massive storm, all flights were canceled. And we couldn't go home and we couldn't go to our destination, and you're just trapped. So like, what else are you supposed to do?
Yeah. And I feel like literally I think this has increased since COVID, like just speaking specifically about airports and about like plane travel. I feel like over the last few years since COVID, it's gotten worse and worse. Number one, people are traveling more. Like the data shows people are traveling way more. And also, the staffing issues they've had. Now then you have some random thing like this. I always find it interesting when something like that happens, like this happens. I've had this where I'm at an airport, not to this degree, but like something happens with the plane or whatever. And people are like up there yelling at the person at the front counter. And it's like, what do you think this person's going to do for you? It's wild. But anyway, so this IT outage, we're still getting data they have made it very like a very unequivocal statement that this is not a security incident or cyber attack. They've already identified, isolated, and fixed, or fix has been deployed, is what they're claiming. I don't know much about this other than there's this company called CrowdStrike. I'll be totally honest and vulnerable here. I've never heard of them. Have you guys heard of them?
No.
Maybe we're displaying our ignorance here of individual stocks, but I've never heard of CrowdStrike. They are a cybersecurity giant. All we know at this point is they've experienced a major disruption that literally, again, has impacted the entire world. It's kind of crazy. And then in just today, CrowdStrike from a stock perspective was down 10%. But have you guys read or heard anything else about this? If like what this actually?
I think it was I don't know, and we're just guessing here, but I'm pretty sure CrowdStrike was the catalyst for this. They are a software that's used by multiple companies worldwide, right? So airports, and I think they're, like you said, they're some sort of like a firewall anti-hacking software. They were the bad egg in all of this, and their problem caused a problem worldwide, theoretically, which is just crazy. Like you said, the kind of how thin the fabric of our society is with technology these days.
It's wild. The other side of we were talking about this as we jumped on, right? Like, what's the takeaway here? I don't know if there is much of a takeaway other than just like talking about this incident, because it literally has just happened today. But we were talking about this, Will, to your point of saying we have never been more connected. We've never had more conveniences. We've never had more access to each other globally. And our system's never been more integrated across the board, which is great. It's led to a ton of innovation and conveniences, right? But also, I think it's led us to be so much more susceptible to something like this, right? Go ahead, Taylor.
I was going to say, it feels like with a lot of these things, it takes weeks for like the actual, what happened and the ramifications to play out. But I know the initial reports were that it was a cyber attack. And then this company's come out and said, it's not a cyber attack. It was a bug in our updates. Like, it wasn't a cyber attack. So they're trying to like pump the brakes to make it, because everyone was losing their mind.
Face.
Oh gosh, Microsoft, airplane, cyber attack. How's my information? Is it safe? So things look better than what the original reports were, but we'll see. This is going to take several.
That's kind of like a movie or like a Black Mirror episode or something,
For sure. So I'm just going to go through really quick just to show the actual like impact of this. I found an article that like there's just little snippets of like all the different groups that are responding. I think this just gives a really good idea of like literally how big and broad the impact was. So the first one is the SEC, so the Securities and Exchange Commission, who regulates the entire stock market in our industry, is responding. They're saying they're trying to monitor the actual impact. So the SEC, Amgen has come out and said they're trying to recover. So massive drug maker. They're saying they're trying to recover impacted systems across the board. Epic is a healthcare software vendor, massive. They're saying all their healthcare organizations are impacted. They're trying to make sure that there's no patient records that are being impacted. So Epic, we've already mentioned airlines, grounded flights across the world. I think the U.S. has literally just grounded all flights. Can you imagine that? Like every single flight just not happening. You can't get anywhere. Sure. England's National Health Service has seen a major disruption. It's why, like literally every single system or company industry is being impacted by this. It's kind of insane. It's kind of amazing.
It's like a primary impact or a secondary impact. Because,
exactly.
Businesses that have business meetings that somebody's flying to are all getting canceled, and there's so many like secondary and tertiary impacts, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah, but it's all good, guys. The CrowdStrike CEO apologized, so we're fine.
The best thing about the internet are memes. I just think like that I've just seen literally like, and I was on social media for like 10 minutes this morning, and I saw like 5 videos of like IT teams waking up this morning, and it's like these like dudes getting ready for battle and like pump up music, and like it's just amazing.
Eye of the tiger as they're getting ready for work. So this was directly from the CrowdStrike CEO. he did confirm. He says you remain fully protected. This is not related to cybersecurity. He says we understand the gravity of the situation and are deeply sorry for the inconvenience and disruption. I guess this is just to the world. We are working with all impacted customers, the world, to ensure that systems are back up and they can deliver the services their customers are counting on.
Team.
Go team. Has there ever been more of like a PR? Like, he did not write that. That was definitely directly from the PR team. But to be fair to him, like, what do you say in that situation? Just like,
gotta get something out.
So anyway, again, no like major takeaway other than just the reminder of how fragile our system is. I don't know if that's just kind of scary, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts on this?
This is feeding conspiracy theorists.
Oh boy.
It's loading them with some ammo. So we'll see how that goes.
Is there something else happening that would mean?
No, it's just like the deep state controls.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
It's like we're at a kind of a fever pitch type of time in our in the U.S. right now.
Something else is going on. Big election.
Side comment on that for real though, and we're not going to get political as much as we possibly can, but it is interesting to that point, Will. I do think that pretty much from now until November, anything that happens is going to be looked at as like, what is this? Is there something behind this?
Yes.
So I'm not totally looking forward to that because I think people are going to be trying to dot the dots on literally everything. They're probably already doing it right now. Like, this is the beginning. This is the first move. So, Taylor, any final thoughts on CrowdStrike or any of this power outage?
I mean, we should be putting all our money in crypto, right, Matt? That's what...
Yes. I think Bitcoin fixes this. I think that's the answer. Yeah. People are probably like, it does. Okay. Will, you mentioned some spending. I got to ask you, are you spending more this week or did you spend more this week, Will and Taylor?
I don't think I did actually, but I know lots of people that did.
Because it was a national holiday.
National holiday, Amazon Prime Week day. There were 2 days, so Prime days. Big days. I don't know. I guess I know I felt it because I talked to a client and they were like, "Yeah, we just got done with Prime Day, so our spending's up a little bit." And I was like, "What do you mean? Are you like, is this a holiday we celebrate now? Prime Day?"
It is. I mean, it's
that big of a deal.
I mean, America was spending. They go hand in hand. 70% of the GDP, literally spending, is what's keeping our economy going.
Yeah.
So thanks, Amazon. Thanks, Jeff Bezos.
So they recorded 2024 sales hit a record $14.2 billion, which just the sheer size of that number in 2 days.
No, a recession's for sure coming. Yeah, we're definitely in a recession.
$14 billion in 2 days. Amazon did that, and that's so much dang money. Anyways, so that's part of it. It's like it broke the record last year was $12.7 billion. It's 11% up from that. So it's a huge success. They're saying they have like, I was looking at this. They said they have like, I don't find it right here, but I'm like Prime members in and of itself is up as well. Like this is a way for them to get people to sign up for Amazon Prime.
How brilliant is Amazon?
Yeah.
They literally have created a holiday.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I laugh at it. I was talking with my wife about it. She was saying that she thinks they increase the prices and then put them on sale like some companies do, and the deals aren't as good as they actually seem. So like something that was $350 on Prime Day says that it's $500 and like whatever 30% off, 20% off, and then but really in reality the next week it's just going to be $400.
Yeah. It's like a masterclass in anchoring bias. They don't they show like the original price with a strikeout?
Oh yeah,
and then
a massive bolded discount number.
Yeah. So yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we were joking about this before. Whenever my wife buys anything, and I'm like, "Oh, that's new," and almost without fail, it's, "Oh yeah, it was on sale," and then my joking, sarcastic, probably kind of being like a smart aleck is like, "Oh, so you're saving money." Yeah. But I think that's generally what people think. Taylor, are you participating in Prime Day? Have you ever?
I got on to check the deals and I was scrolling through and I told my wife, I said, "Do we need a vacuum?" She was like, "I don't know. Is it a good deal?" And I was like, "I guess it is." But that's kind of my reaction to it is I got on and I looked at the deals and there were some good deals, but I was like, do I need any of this? And
That's where you differ, I think, from most people.
Yeah. I looked at the AirPods that Will's wearing right now, and they were on sale. And then I looked at their Walmart price, and they were the exact same price at Walmart as they were on Prime Day. It's like,
I think it's interesting because I think it's a lot of want-based spending for Prime Day because it's just a random day in the middle of the summer and people are like, oh, I could use a new snow cone machine or a new raft for my pool. Like those are two things that we actually thought about buying. But they're not needs. I don't know. So Taylor, kudos to you for saying, do we need a new vacuum? Some people will look at the deal and be like, I have to get this vacuum because I have to. I can only spend money when it's on sale, and so if it's on sale, even if I don't need it, I get it because This is a deal, and I can't say no to a deal. My sister-in-law is the same way. She'll just spend thousands of dollars when there's sales, or she'll be the lady who goes and like stocks up on maybe like 80 things of soda at Smith's when there's a massive sale. That's fine. You're gonna have soda for months and months, but I think people are wired to say there's a deal, I'm going to spend money even if I don't need it because I want it, and
then rationalize it later.
Maybe I'll need it at some point in the future.
Yeah. I feel like Prime Day is kind of like the ultimate, it's like the ultimate symbol of what we talk about of how hard our environment is to live in right now when it comes to mindless spending. It's kind of like, it does symbolize everything to do with, literally it's become a holiday. Like everyone I talk to, you see it all over social media. I have clients who are like, oh, it's Prime Day coming up. Like, and to your point, Will, I agree. When we talk about spending, people often think we're going to like sit here and give you the Dave Ramsey lecture about like budgeting and all this stuff. It's not that. But the category that we want to focus the most on, if you have any category, I think you're breaking your spending down, in my opinion, into two categories. Number one is intentional spending. What's that spending around like aligning money with my values and what actually brings me joy? That takes some work to figure out. And then category two is the mindless spending. And this, to me, Prime Day fits very safely in the mindless spending. I would dare say, I want to get your guys' thoughts. I would dare say that not one person here, one person like out there could tell you what they bought for Prime Day last year.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. No idea, right? I bet no one, unless they're tracking on a spreadsheet, could tell you what they actually spent.
I think Amazon is also like kind of the go-to place for gadgets you don't need that like seem kind of cool. We have a cup upstairs. I've never used it, but it's you can keep milk and cereal inside the cups, and then you can drink it. And then it like gives you a little bit of cereal and a little bit of milk, but your cereal doesn't go soggy.
Okay.
And it's like, we got it on Amazon and it was like, oh, that's freaking genius. Like, let's buy that thing. I've never used it, but we got it and it was probably like $30 and it's just such an unnecessary purchase. But I think that's kind of what most of these things are.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of Amazon is definitely unnecessary purchases. So, okay. Any other final thoughts on Prime Day, Taylor?
It's kind of related to Prime Day. I was looking at an article this morning and it was talking about 4th of July spending. And since 2014, basically from 2014 to 2020, Americans spent around $7 billion for July 4th weekend, right? But since 2021, that number has continued to climb and we spent $9.4 billion.
This last 4th of July?
Yes, 2024. So that's an increase of $2.4 billion in just, 4 years?
It's wild. So wait, you're telling me we spent $9.4 billion as Americans, like across the board for July 4th spending specifically, and then just a couple weeks later we had Prime Day and we spent 14 something billion? Like, is there any indication that we're not even close to a recession? Honestly. Like, don't look any further than just like, this is what Robbie talks about all the time is until we stop spending money, which we are clearly not. And this is what I don't understand when you see these articles around, around how, number of people are living paycheck to paycheck, or number of, the large percentage of people who can't afford a $500, like, unnecessary or a surprise expense. Like, maybe I'm missing something here, but this doesn't seem to connect very well for me of those types of articles, and then the data that supports, this type of stuff. Unless we're just saying there's only a small group of people that are spending all the money on Amazon and 4th of July. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
It can't be that way, right? Like there can't be a small group of people spending 14 billion. Everybody's buying something.
Exactly.
Maybe you look to credit card debt growing or something like that, but it's you're so right. We continue to spend, and I think spending is driven by, going back to our previous topic, like connectivity. Everyone sees everybody else now. Everybody knows this person's got this gadget. Before I would not have known about my cereal cup because I wouldn't have seen it on social media or something,
Yep.
So everyone is seeing what everyone else has more than often or not. And I just think spending is going to continue to rip because everyone's trying to, either keep up or buy what somebody else has or.
Well, and let's be honest, these companies are creating an environment and innovating around how to get you to spend money. Like Amazon built its empire off of the one-click buy and removing friction from the buying process. Now they pioneered it, and now every company is following suit. The entire environment is around how to get us to mindlessly spend. Social media being a huge part of that.
One of the crazy stats from this article is that it said $1 billion of the 14 billion was on buy now, pay later. So Amazon offers that as an option.
Yeah.
So like whatever, 8-9% of it is financed. Like you're financing your Amazon gadgets.
That's wild. That's wild.
Go
ahead, Taylor.
Kind of to piggyback off what Will was saying and you were saying about like the social media and the social pressure of this, where we're comparing ourselves and we're trying to keep up with what we see on social media. So I'm going to shout out Daniel Crosby at our most recent summit.
Friend of the show. We love you, Daniel.
Love what he said. He was talking about back in the day, even, 20 years ago, keeping up with the Joneses really meant keeping up with the Joneses who were in your neighborhood. It was a family that you knew, that you could see. And now it's not just keeping up with the Joneses, it's now keeping up with the Kardashians, right? Because we are literally comparing ourselves to people across the world who are, who even knows if what they're doing is real or they're paying for, right? But just the amount of comparison that's happening.
Spoiler alert, it's not real.
Right.
Yeah.
But I just love that. Like keeping up with the Joneses has grown to keeping up with the Kardashians because we're no longer comparing ourselves just to people in our neighborhood. We're also comparing ourselves to influencers and celebrities and people with all the access and connectivity. That social pressure to keep up with the person next to you has just expanded in amazing fashion.
Yeah. And at the risk of sounding like curmudgeon old men who are sitting here being like, don't spend your money on Prime, or like Prime is evil. We're not saying that at all. But I think as we're going through this, I'm thinking, okay, what's the takeaway here? I think for me, and I'd love to hear from you guys, but I think the biggest thing with spending is it's what you just highlighted, both of you, is just creating awareness and understanding the power of your environment, like the power of your environment. If you are not putting rules in place, if you're not, again, just simply creating awareness of how impactful your environment is. And I'm talking like your digital environment, the supercomputer in your pocket. It's so easy nowadays. It has never been harder to be aware of this spending. It's one click now. It's wild. So again, that's my takeaway of this is just don't stop spending. Yeah. Just increase awareness and be thinking about what bucket am I pulling from, or am I filling up more? Is it my intentional spending of the things that actually bring me joy? Because I think for people, everyone has those things.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, or is my most of my money going in the bucket of like mindless spending? What other takeaways do you guys have, if any, of this particular topic?
Yeah, I don't mean to be like, don't buy stuff. Like, you're gonna buy stuff, and it's good to buy stuff on sale if it's something you need and you can save $100 on it. Do that. That's great.
Sure.
Please be my guest on that. It's more just exactly what you said. Get intentional. Get really intentional with your spending. Like really know what you care to spend your money on. And I think it was like what was the quote? Mercilessly.
Ramit Sethi. It's spend extravagantly on the things that bring you joy, and cut mercilessly on the things that don't.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, which I love. That's exactly right, Will. It's like just understand those trade-offs, and money. I believe money can buy you happiness or can increase joy in your life. I think we all believe that if spent correctly and intentionally. Yeah. I'm going to dare say that most people spending money, anything on Prime, most things you're buying are not actually adding joy to your life. I'm going to guess. Sure. Maybe that's a controversial take, but the last thing I'll say on this too, this goes along with what we talked about last week with Jake. Over 80% of Americans are taking a vacation this year. So again, just coming to this back to this, like doubling down on this whole idea of like, how is recession even on the minds of anyone right now? We're so far, now I'm going to jinx us, holy cow, but we're so far away from a recession right now based on all the data. It's just mind blowing. So I guess the other thing is be careful of the media, be careful of what you're actually reading, because the data does not support we're anywhere close to a recession.
Yeah.
Taylor, any final thoughts on that?
Amen.
Okay. Last thing, let's get real controversial. Does your portfolio care who's president? I think there's something happening this year, something with politics. I can't remember what, something happening around Thanksgiving time. It's been kind of wild, but so this is something we're going to be talking more about over the next few months. Taylor, you had some thoughts around investing in an election year. We'll throw it to you.
Yeah, I mean, if we just look back on this week alone, right, we've had a presidential candidate with an assassination attempt, right?
So wild.
We had, there's been news now that Biden's considering pulling out of the race, right? 4 months before the actual election itself, right? So just some crazy things happening in the political landscape. And so rightfully so, there's a lot of uneasiness. What does this mean for the stock market? What does this mean for the long term? I can't tell you how many people have been reaching out, asking questions about, what are your thoughts with the election? What do you think is going to be happening? And it's been clients, and it's also just been like random friends who know I'm a financial advisor, and they're just like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Right.
Isn't that funny, by the way? Really quick side note on that. Like, people find out we have anything to do with money or investing. And because I get this all the time too. It's like, well, what do you think like it's going to happen to the stock market? Like, I understand the sentiment, but from our perspective, I'm always like, I don't know any more than you do of like what's going to happen. I just think it's so interesting that people think we like have some inside information on that.
Yeah, I always tell my clients, if I knew, I'd be making a lot more money than I am currently, and we wouldn't be.
It's like we'd be friends, but I probably would be like in Tahiti somewhere. Yeah.
Making trades on my phone.
Exactly. Sorry, go ahead, Taylor.
Basically, what I found an article and really a chart that was really interesting to me. It just kind of highlighted annualized returns during U.S. presidential terms since 1929. Right. So basically, going back 100 years, there has been 16 different presidential terms up to this point. Of those 16, all but 3 of them were positive. Right. So we've only had 3 presidential terms in 100 years that had negative returns in the S&P 500 index specifically. Right.
That's the key takeaway right there. 3 of 16 terms.
3 of 16.
That's
terms,
wild.
Right. And the 13 of 16 were all 10% or more annualized returns. Right. So greater than 10% or more annualized returns in the S&P 500 for 13 out of the 16 presidential elections.
Yeah.
Or presidential terms. So really, and if you look back on the 3 that were negative, the first one was Herbert Hoover. I don't think there's many people alive that lived through that term, right? But that was the
Don't think so.
Right? Mm-hmm. Then the next one was Richard Nixon. He's a bit famous. We've heard of him before, right?
Yep.
And then we had George W. Bush, which was, he kind of had a tough hand dealt to him between the dot-com bubble to start his presidential term and the Great Recession, right, to end it. Yep. So outside of that, 13 out of 16 presidential terms, regardless of political party, right, it's been a greater than 10% annual rate of return on the S&P 500.
And what's wild about this, Taylor, looking at this chart, so outside of Herbert Hoover, obviously, like you said, Great Depression, so it was negative 27% during his term. The 2 other negatives outside of that, Nixon and Bush, you're talking very low single digit, negative 2%, like negative 3%, basically flat. for the most part. The rest, it's kind of wild to see. Like you said, 10% or greater returns over those 13 positive terms over the 6. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why I bring this up is, and this is not to be political, but my background, I grew up in Utah. If you don't know much about Utah, it's a very red state. And so ever since I've grown up, every time a Democrat has been elected, I've heard a lot of rumblings about the stock market about to go to crap, right? And
the economy, the stock market, yeah.
The economy is going to, we're going to just see it tank. It's going to be terrible. And guess what has happened every single time? It's always done well.
Keeps charging.
It's never, ever had, there's not a single time in my entire lifetime where we've seen, the Democratic Party have a negative return, right? And that's not to say that the Democrats are negative and the Republicans are positive. It's just, in my experience, where I'm surrounded primarily by a red state, they're very worried about when a Democrat gets elected, the stock market has done fine. And the opposite is also true when, Democrats in my life are worried about Trump getting elected, and Trump had a 16% annualized return the last time he was in office, right? So
yeah.
It's irregardless.
Yeah, I agree with that, Taylor. I sort of think my take on it too is like I think it's a huge misconception to say that whoever is in office or the government controls the stock market or has like a massive effect on the stock market. Yes, there is some ancillary effect based on regulation they put in place and laws they put in place, and that will by default affect the stock market because that we live in a country where they have wield power. However, the majority of the returns of the stock market are driven by the underlying companies that exist, that create wealth, and that, the economy in and of itself is different than the stock market. So
totally.
With all that being said, we believe that humans and companies, humans in general, are wired to always want to do better. And most people wake up every morning and think, how can I improve? If you work for a company, you're probably going to work thinking, how can I make this company better, or how can I pull my weight to do good, right? And I think the CEOs of the smallest companies in the world to the biggest companies in the world are all doing that same thing. They want to continue to improve. And yeah, there's going to be some hiccups and some roadblocks and some pandemics and some things along the way that will push the market down. But over time, the market is going to continue to grow. We believe bull markets are going to be more prominent than bear markets in the long run because of that fact. New companies will come along and emerge and do well, and some old companies will die off. But overall, humans are going to continue to progress and improve. And
well said. I mean, that's the truth. I totally agree, Will, that we put way too much stock in who's president in regards to this specific topic, right? We're not getting political outside of that. Just saying, across both sides, across the board, we put way too much stock. See what I did there? Stock.
Yeah.
In like what impact the president's going to have specifically with the market. For I would say it's actually pretty straightforward to me of why this happens. Taylor, what you were talking about of like either side kind of being like, oh, here goes the economy. Study after study after study, poll after poll after poll shows that there's only one topic people care about. It's one topic that basically swings back and forth as far as who's president, almost across the board for as long as they've been doing this, and it is the economy. It is always the number one thing people care about. And so incentives are the most powerful thing in the world. So the party who's not in power, of course, is going to know the economy is the number one topic on people's minds, despite what people say. The polls show it every single time. Really, the economy is what swings it one way or the other. And so who's ever not in power is, of course, going to say, oh, the economy is going to crap. On both sides, because they know that if they do that and they can get that narrative to catch on, then they can hopefully take power back. But the data shows, to your point, Taylor and Will, what you're saying, there is no conclusive data at all that whatever party's in place over the long term, there is no pattern. There's no way for us to be like, oh, yep, Democrats do better than Republicans or vice versa. The system is too complex for that.
And to this point, Matt, it feels like in our political landscape, there's very few things that are agreed upon. But guess what? Both parties really, really want the economy to do well.
Yes.
Right? So all they're trying to do is make sure that the economy does well while they're in office.
Yep.
Both parties. They're both. This is one thing they can both agree on is we want the U.S. economy to do well.
Yeah. And it tends to continue to do well. And again, Will, to your point, the market is not the economy and vice versa. There's a lot of crossover, a lot of connection, but they're not the same thing. In fact, most of the indicators that we use to talk about the health of the economy are lagging indicators. It's really difficult, right? Where the market is usually a 6-month forward-looking indicator. So a lot of just that alone, from a time frame perspective, is not going to show or not going to have a direct correlation. The other thing is the public markets that we're looking at with the stock market are only a small piece of what's happening in the economy, because those are only public companies. How many more companies are out there that are small businesses that you don't see show up in the stock market? So
Dentist Advisors, let's go.
Yeah, Dentist Advisors is one of them. So yeah, far, far more small businesses that do not show up in the stock market than there are in the stock market. So okay, any final thoughts on this? We didn't get too controversial, I don't think. Did we make anyone mad?
No, that was good. And I guess we'll qualify with the market could take a turn with the election. We don't know. Like, this is what we continue to say we don't know. So I think the market's up like 18% this year or something.
Yeah, it's like year to date at 18, which is wild. Keeps ripping, but
we got a nice head start if it does take a turn. So
we'll see how this ages. We'll see how if this episode ages well. So
I knocked on wood already after jinxed the recession.
I know, I'm jinxing it. I'm jinxing it for sure. All right, Taylor, Will, thank you so much for being here. Everyone, as always, thanks for listening. That was our 2 cents. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.